Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows that the war is over. And everybody knows that the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor and the rich get rich. That's how it goes. And everybody knows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. And everybody knows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. And everybody knows. You know, I thought about how to continue because this last year has kind of been tough. And I came across a video by Jordan Peterson, and he talks about the necessity of acknowledging things that you were a part of, even if you had very little to do with them occurring, and where if you were as much a participant as anyone could be. And I might have screwed that part up, but the sense of it was you have to acknowledge what's going on around you, and you have to acknowledge how it impacts you. And so in the next several videos, I'm going to talk about, you know, some of the things that affected me that were large scale. You know, an example of this might be that, I was gestating during the summer of love. Right? It was the summer of 1969. I mean, it was, if you really look at it, Woodstock was the kickoff of the modern era of music festivals. It isn't that music festivals hadn't existed before, but the rock music festival, the music festival for the kids, the music festival where the rules were broken. And importantly, psychedelics became one of the most common substances, right? We're talking about an era of revolt, but it was a different kind of revolt because it was a peaceful revolt. It was a musical revolt, right? And you had all of these incredible events during that summer. And some said, you could have argued or made a case that was not a summer of love. Quite the opposite. It was, a summer of war. We were still in Vietnam, right? I mean, my father had just left to go back to Wisconsin before he went off to his tour in Vietnam, completely unbeknownst to him that I was his future. And at the same time, we have to acknowledge that in 1969, being 16 and pregnant, led to a whole new set of things and decisions people had to make. I asked my mom once, my adopted mother once, I said, how is it that between 1966 and 1969, you adopted 3 kids, and here it was probably the 80s. I said, how here is it in the 80s? And, people are struggling to adopt one. And she did. She simply looked at me and she said, well, Roe v. Wade. And, if you want to look at a very pivotal point in my experience, right, it's coming to terms with what that means. And the experiences that I would have later in life when I look back at that, reflect a very profound shift. And this is the important part, a shift in how we saw life. The empowerment of women in that age to handle their birth control, had that been handled freely and openly, right? Had women been able to access birth control, the issue of abortions would have, I'm certain, been a fraction of what they are. But for some reason, you really couldn't have, apparently, realistic conversations about birth control. I mean, even when I was in high school, sex education, was more about, scaring you, if you anything, when you got to sex education. Don't do this and screw everything up, your penis will fall off or some shit. I mean, yeah, it happens, absolutely. But, just as important is, trying to help understand what it is to have a healthy sexual nation or even a healthy sexual world. And that summer of 1969 was the summer of love. And it raises the question of what now, 54 years later, has that summer of love created? And so in these videos, I'm going to talk about those parts of the story. The things that were happening around me that deeply impacted who I am. And at the same time, impacted everyone around us in very much the same way, and yet tragically, in very dark ways. It affected some of us very differently.
10, 9, ignition sequence.
We went to the moon, right? We celebrated for the first time visiting a moon that had been created right in front of our forefathers thousands of years ago. What an accomplishment that is. And at the same time, we continue to ravage and kill people in Vietnam and Cambodia. And across the world, wars were raging. And property. Mine. Mine. Remember that. That was the cult of death. I'm going to do a story next week on circumcision. Maybe I'll do it. I think we'll do it 2 weeks. But I promise you, you won't hear a story like this anywhere else. Love you guys. Peace out. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. And everybody knows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes.